Okay. Well, hi all. For those of you who just popped in, you can unmute yourself if you want to say hello. Please use Alt-H to bring up the Zoom chat box. I encourage you to ask questions. I'm going to reserve some time at the end to answer questions that come up during it. If there's something that's pressing, just unmute yourself and pop on in. And I'll tell you what, let's see, I want to see everybody. Well, I have everybody's name here. And let me just change the view and we will be on our way. Hi, Lena. Hi, Russ. Don't worry, you don't have to show your face. I know what you guys look like. Oh, there's a face. Hey, buddy.
Hi, Jay. How are you?
Good. Nice to see you.
Great to see you too. Thank you.
Thanks. I heard a rumor that there may be a tailgate at your house. Make sure you don't forget me.
Will do, buddy. No worries.
All right. Okay, everybody. I'm going to get started. How's that? Sound good? Good. Okay. Let me stop sharing my screen. You don't need to see people with buckets over their heads. There you go. I got to change that because I just have, Russ, not that I don't enjoy seeing you, but that's all I see is you. So it's good to see you. Okay. Well, everybody, welcome. I'm Jay London, the college advice guy. I'm giving this seminar today because any of you who've worked with me before know that I probably started our relationship by telling you that 25% of all freshmen who go to college drop out and never go back, and another 25 to 30% of those people who don't end up transferring. So the information I'm providing today is in addition to everything that we've done together, which you're not going to have to worry about that because we've gone extensively with your kids, with you guys who are on there. You know where you're going, why you're going. We've done all that hard work, so the people on here don't have to worry about being caught unawares by the program they're going to. But in this age, even if it wasn't the age of COVID, I hold this seminar, I hold this class for everybody that I work with, getting to this point because there's a lot of things that come up in this new relationship that you're going to have with your child that you're just not either aware of or prepared for. So by giving you some information, hopefully we'll know what to expect and you won't have any real difficulties. So I'm going to focus in the beginning on what it is you should be doing before they leave. I'm going to talk about what the parents need to do to protect both yourself and your student from unexpected things and expected things or unknown that will arise. And then I'll be following up with all of you who've worked with me to make sure that your students head off and they know how to do things like time management and read a syllabus and et cetera. I'm going to go through this pretty much like a checklist to hit the high points. I will be sending everyone a copy of a checklist so that everything I go over today, you can just go through and check, yes, you've done it, or no, you haven't. When I mention documents that you will need, if you've been working with me already, they come to you free of charge. You'll be receiving the documents that you need to fill out to protect yourself. If you haven't already, I'll be providing those to you. And those of you who haven't worked with me, good thing about previously being a lawyer, I'm good at drafting up things pretty quickly, and I'll be offering them at a significantly reduced price from what a lawyer would charge you. Okay, So what's the biggest thing you need to do before your kids go off to college? You have to sit down and have a difficult conversation. Um, you have to sit down because I know that the kids don't like talking to you about things like this, and you have to say, these are what my expectations of you are as a student, as my child going off to college. Here are the things that I expect you to be doing. And you should ask them what it is that you expect me to do as a parent. You hear about helicopter parenting. I like to call it in this age drone parenting, because we can be there constantly and see what's going on. You should not back away from keeping up with what your student is doing, what your kid's doing, because you want to give them a sense of freedom. Because one of the things that I see all the time, and it's become a much bigger part of my practice, is kids go off to school. You don't hear much from them, or you do hear from them and they're not telling you much. You don't have access to their email. You don't know how they're doing grade-wise. You don't know how they're doing socially. They talk about projects they're doing. They talk about tests and grades. And next thing you know, they come home for Thanksgiving and they tell you, I'm failing out of school. Or I haven't gone to class for 6 weeks, or anything like that. Again, I've worked with most of the people in here. I've worked with your students. You're not going to have to worry about that, but it's part of what I'm telling everybody. So what does that mean? Look, you need to ensure that you know what's going on at college, not necessarily their personal life, but what's going on with respect to academics, what's going on with respect to projects that they have, what's going on with respect to tests and grades and other problems that they're having. The problem is colleges don't really tell you that you're not entitled to any of that information. I know you signed a FERPA, or your kid signed a FERPA waiver, the Federal Educational Rights and Privacy Act, and it says, oh, you think, okay, that's great. That means they can share everything with me. What that actually means is that the information about what happened in high school can be shared with you, and that final grades can be shared with you, but nothing else will be shared with you unless you have an absolute right to get that information. If you ask your student how they're doing in class and they don't want to tell you, if you don't know whether they're going to class or not, if you don't know what problems are coming up, how their grades are doing, you can't call the college and find out. And similarly with respect to finances, if there's a problem with financial aid, what problem could there be with financial aid? Well, here's an example. It is not unknown, it is not that unusual for students to go away from home and after about 3 weeks drop out of school, take their rebate, get their refund because it goes to them, and then just go off somewhere. Again, the faces that I'm looking at, it's not happening with your kids, but I need to let you know that you need to know what's going on financially, health-wise, and also academically, which means that before you go off to school, and I know I've mentioned this to you before, you have to get your papers in order. So what documents is it essential for you to have? First off, you need to have a power of attorney. There's specific powers of attorney that you need. You need to have a financial power of attorney, which means that your child is going to authorize the school to let you know what's happening financially. And that's even important with respect to paying bills. If a loan hasn't come through, frequently schools are really bad, you pay the bill and then you keep getting notices for 6 weeks that nothing's been paid, right? Well, if you call the bursar, they won't tell you any information. Doesn't matter if you're paying, it goes to your kid. So the first thing is a limited financial power of attorney. That limited financial power of attorney basically says the school has to tell you everything about finances and talk to you as if they're talking to your student, okay? It's just really important. Your student's 18, they have to sign that over to you. If they don't, then you are really caught unawares, and you're basically blind unless your kid tells you what's happening. So limited financial power of attorney is extremely important. With respect to health, you go, well, I signed a HIPAA waiver, right? Well, you signed a HIPAA waiver, but that still does not entitle you to get up-to-date information about what's going on with respect to your child. Mental health issues hit everyone. Doesn't matter how well adjusted they are now. It's a different situation, and mental health issues arise. I've worked with students who've, had to be involuntarily committed. I've worked with students, who had to go into drug and alcohol rehab. Were kicked out of school for things like that, and you're trying to get information about it, and you just can't get it. So you need a limited medical power of attorney as well, because schools just can't give you that information. Those powers of attorney will really make things a lot easier on you. Now, as far as other information that you need and why, as parents, we need this information, and I'm going based upon personal experiences with a lot of people that I've worked with and problems that they've had. So many of us are, our kids are on their phones all the time. They have great relationships with people who you probably have never even met before, or their first names. They're going to be going to college. They're going to have roommates. They're going to have suite mates. They're going to have classmates. They're going to have people on teams and clubs that they hang out with. You don't have access to your kids' contacts, right? My guess is you don't know the phone numbers. You don't have in your phone the phone numbers probably of their 5 best friends, unless you happen to be friends with their parents. So we don't think about it, and again, I'm not going to get too negative, but look, there are situations where your kid will disappear. You'll be trying to contact your kid, and they may be hunkered down studying. They may have gone on an impromptu, weekend of bushcraft somewhere, right? Like kids do. They may have gone to New York. They may have gone to wherever it is, and you're having difficulty reaching them. You and your child have to have this discussion and say why it's important that it's absolutely necessary for them to provide you with contact information with the people that they spend time with. Look, you have a trust relationship, and they know you're not going to be checking up on them or calling them, but this is the worst thing is when, and again, I hate to make it negative, but there are situations where you need to get in touch with your kid and their phone's dead, or their phone's off, or their phone's not with them, or they don't want to be found, and God forbid you have a family emergency, or a situation where it's been a day or two and you haven't heard from them, or they go study abroad, or they go to Mexico for spring break, and the cops say, well, who does she hang out with? Who are her friends? Where does she go? Where do they live? You have to know things like that. This is not infringing upon their privacy as much as you have to understand it's absolutely necessary in order to protect your kids and make sure, and let them know that that's why you're doing it. You're not snooping on them. They're adults now, right? But they have a relationship, a familial relationship, and they trust you not to snoop. But that information is crucial, because if you need additional help, you need to know where to ask for it. And I think everybody on here I've known for a while. I mean, I had a situation where my daughter was in Mexico for spring break. And I got a frantic call from her friend saying she's been abducted. We don't know where she is. The consulate didn't want to help. The police don't want to help. And it was a matter of being able to, her friends being able to contact us, and us being able to contact people down there. And by God's grace that we got her back. But it's scary. It's a good thing that I knew who her friends were and how to contact them and things like that. So just make sure that your kids understand you're not there to snoop. You'll put it in a lockbox. You're not going to follow them around. It's the same thing with, find a phone, right? Now, I have some parents who insist that their kids keep their phone tracker on them and make sure that they're going to class. And I feel silly because the people that are on there, I know your kids, they're top flight kids and they're going to school for the right reasons. But this is for everyone in general. Nothing worse than paying a lot of money for kids to go to school and they're not where they're supposed to be when they're supposed to be there. You don't have to follow them. I'm not telling you to follow them, but it's sort of like if you let them know that somebody can always check up. I had an agreement with my kids when they were in school that if they missed a class, they owed me money. Because the way I figured it when they were going to class, each hour cost me between $175 and $350. And if they wanted to take off, then they owed me money. So all of this is about know information, where they are, who they hang out with, where they belong, and what's going on. There is no so with that being said, all of your kids have signed up at their schools and they have an email with the school. They have a portal. Every school has portals. One of the biggest mistakes, real bad mistakes that kids make when they get into college is they're not used to checking their email. Colleges will contact them via text, but things happen quickly via email. If they're not used to checking their email all the time, I've had students who've missed exams that have been changed. They had deadlines that were pushed up. They are famous for letting you know way too late that 3 weeks ago they got a notice that you had to send money in or had to do something else, or they were going to lose their housing. And then you're like, didn't you get an email? And they're like, oh, I guess I did. So one of the things that you need to work out with your student is access to that email account, not their private email, the school email. And with that, you can have it so that just say, all I really care about, look, you're going to take care of your professors. I'm not going to ride your shoulders. I'm not going to make you do that. But what I do want is set your email so that if you receive any notification from the registrar, from housing, from food service, from the bursar, from financial aid, that automatically gets forwarded to me. You don't have to do it. I'm just suggesting that just as much as it's not an excuse for the kids to miss something because they didn't open their email, you're going to be in that same situation. Now, the nice thing is when you have a power of attorney, you can insist that the school departments carbon copy you on those communications. So you don't have to worry about your kid doing it. But they're not used to email. Make sure they're on their emails. Okay, moving on. What else do you need to do to protect yourself and protect what's going on? Well, you've seen that colleges, you're not quite sure whether they're going to be fully online, partially online, in whatever it is. Colleges have pretty much decided they're not reducing their tuition. They're going to charge you the tuition they're going to charge you. But they said, well, maybe this year we're not going to increase our tuition, right? Well, one of the things that happened last year, 6 months ago in March when they canceled things is, there are a lot of lawsuits now for people trying to get tuition or partial tuition back, partial room and board back. So that brings up the issue. One, please make sure you have posted somewhere the refund, the tuition pro rata refund chart for your school. What does that mean? If you drop out of school, or drop a class, or drop below a certain amount that you're paying for before the first 2 weeks, you pretty much get 100% refund. After that, like the next 10 days, it's 60%. And after 5 weeks, you basically have lost tuition for that semester. I bring that up again because a substantial new part of my business is people who contact me had not used me before contact me and said, my kid dropped out, my kid's having problems, what do we do? So that brings up the issue of tuition insurance. I've noticed that some schools have been sending out letters that they have contracted with an insurance company for purposes of tuition insurance. Here's the thing that I'm not quite sure of. I don't think they've made, from what I've seen, COVID doesn't count. So they say get tuition insurance in case you have to drop out from a mental problem. If you have, the stress has gotten too much and a doctor says you have to leave. If you have a physical injury and you can't go forward. If something of a tragedy happens at home and you have to take care of your family. Anyway, it's just something to look into. Whether or not it's worth it depends upon how much they're going to cover. So that brings me to other issues that you need to ensure or keep yourself aware of. I know I've mentioned this to all of you, but the number one target for identity theft are students. If you don't have identity theft protection, get it ASAP. I don't care if you use LifeLock or AAA or your own insurance company sometimes has it. But it's a minimal, and again, it's a minimal charge to have it, but I'm glad I had it, but I found out this year when I went to file my taxes, they couldn't be filed because somebody had filed my taxes already and claimed a refund. They got my information through like the Experian hack or one of those things. And even though I agreed to have like the LifeLock or, protection, it happened in between before the time they found out that I'd been hacked. So imagine going to file your taxes and they won't accept them. So now I'm involved with, how to get a lawyer and I had to get an accountant, and just to say, I never filed my taxes and I never got that refund. So it's very easy. Kids are the number one target. And what you have to be aware of is that they find out that information. They're online all the time. They hack it and they literally go into a bank and they get student loans. They fill out the FAFSA forms in your name, in their child's name, and they get a federal Stafford loan. It happens all the time. And that's just the beginning. They also use their identity and drop out of school for your child and try to get refunds. You don't want to think about it. You have to protect yourself. I'm sorry to give you more stuff to worry about. You're going to have a wonderful time. The kids are going to be great. You're all going to, but keep in mind, it's important. Other insurances that you have to be aware of. I know I worked with you on, I mentioned it, this is a terrible thing, but if you're taking out any loans, if you have a federal loan and in the event of an unfortunate accident or untimely death, that's what we're talking about, your loan is discharged, your student's loan will be discharged. I'm talking about your student death, not trying again, not to be really positive, but listen, if you don't want to be stuck with the debt, get a small life insurance policy for the amount of the loan if you have a private loan. If you have a federal loan, it'll get discharged. If you have a private loan from a bank or a credit union, you're a co-signer, you're not getting let off the hook. Yes, it'll be the least of your concern at that time, but if you get an 18-year-old term life insurance for whatever, it's going to cost you like a couple dollars a month, right? And then if you want, continue it after or get rid of it. Here's something your kids might know their social security number. We all knew it. I know my wife's social security number. I know my kid's social security number, but I don't even know if they have paper social security cards anymore. But let your kids know that that's it. That's the key to the kingdom. They don't share that number with anybody. They don't leave their card in a drawer. Because when they invariably get drunk, somebody will go into their pocket and take it. Make sure you have that information. Here's another big mistake they make. Make sure that they carry their papers with them, their documentation with them. They need to have their ID with them at all time. They get a college ID, but they need to have their driver's license with them. They need to have their insurance card with them. They need to have their AAA card with them if they're going, anywhere at any time. So they don't want to leave those lying around, but the big mistake kids make is they go to class, they leave everything in the drawer, their roommate will steal it from them, their RA will steal it from them. There are bad people, and you don't want to, it should be on their person at all time, unless it's in a lockbox. Also explain to them, have a real frank discussion about, and I know you've done it for a long time, that no matter what happens, they can call you. The kids freak out if they get drunk or, you know, do something and end up, here's another thing that you need to think about, if they end up getting arrested. One of the things that, and again, you know, people laugh and they don't think about it, but let me tell you, it's a real danger that's going to be going on with these kids, especially if you're in an area between now and the election. With the BLM protests and the Antifa protests and other protests that are going on, and with protests against, you know, Trump or for Biden, whatever's going on, colleges are hotbeds of that activity. And we all want to be we want to see our kids be socially responsible. We want to make sure that, you know, they get involved in things. But please let them know that it doesn't matter what their intentions are. If they're in the right, if they get nabbed by the wrong person at the wrong place at the wrong time, and they end up getting arrested, or they end up, you know, getting suspended from school for it or something else, they need to know, and they probably do, that make sure that not only do they call you, but here's something that's really good for you. I recommend, especially, and I'll go into it more, that you look into see if your insurance has prepaid legal. I know that for a lot of insurance companies, you can add for, I don't know, $10 a month prepaid legal services. And what's the importance of that? God forbid they get pulled over, they're with a friend, and that friend, you know, they're around in a car and somebody had drugs, or they have alcohol, or they get an underage, or whatever happens. They go to a protest and they get arrested. You know, they need to have a number to call, right? You need to have a number to call. We all don't have attorneys on hand. I'm just telling you, it's one of those things, you do it, you don't think about it, it's costing you $10 a month. Again, check your insurances, it's not that expensive. But trust me when I tell you, when you can pick up the phone and call, you know, this number, and they send an attorney to help you and help your child, it saves you a tremendous amount of money. I also bring that up because Title IX, especially, again, and I've talked to all of you about this before, look, things are really, you know, everything is really roiling now, you know, and Title IX is no exception. So that has to do with primarily, especially if you have boys going off to school, you have to be really aware of Title IX regulations, the sexual harassment, you know, inappropriate touchings and things like that. Colleges finally now are required to provide students with some due process, but I want you to also know it's important for you, and it's a lot of work for you guys to do. You need to know what their policies are with respect to that. And especially with hate crimes too. If you're a student, again, I feel silly talking to you guys because you have great kids. I mean, everybody I see have great kids, but you just never know. And there are some schools that, and I have friends who are lawyers who do this all the time. You get, somebody pisses somebody off, and next thing you know, all they have to do is make an allegation that you called them something, or you inappropriately touched them, or you made an offhanded comment. And next thing you know, your kid's out of school. Having access to a lawyer that you can ask is a wonderful thing. I'm almost done the scary stuff. I've mentioned this also, teledoc. Most of you in your insurance have access to teledoc. Why is teledoc important? You're gonna say, don't colleges have, they have a hospital right there, and they have a health clinic right there. Well, I can tell you, if your student had a nurse that lived in their room, they wouldn't tell that nurse if they weren't feeling well. I'm just telling you, that's how it is. Kids won't go to the clinic. Kids will call you. They'll call mom. They'll say, what do we do? right? And you'll say, go to the clinic. And you're like, I don't want to go to the clinic. Or they're embarrassed by something. Maybe it's acne, maybe it's a rash. Who knows what it is? Maybe they have a tummy ache, whatever. They have diarrhea they don't want to talk about, right? Meningitis. I mean, people don't feel well now with COVID. What I found is with Teladoc, what you do with Teladoc is they pick up the phone, they hit a number, and within 10 minutes, they're having an examination by a doctor on the phone. And that Teladoc has the information with respect to pharmacies, which is another thing. You have to find out what the local pharmacies are near you, near your kids, so that way you can have, prescriptions called in when you need to, and drugs will be delivered. Real drugs will be delivered, pharmaceutical drugs, with prescriptions, not the Uber drugs that you can get. So look into Teladoc, and with that, look, a big thing that I want to talk to you about is mental health. I mentioned it before. So this goes to the next part, which is the soft type of stuff. Look, the biggest thing that your kids are going to go through is separation anxiety. I don't care how mature your kids are. I don't care if they've spent the last 12 years in the summer living in hostels or kibbutzim or whatever it is around the world. Nothing upsets their balance like going away to college. Okay, it's not like going somewhere for vacation. Your kids are going to call you, most of you, within the first week or 10 days and say, I don't know what the hell I'm doing here. I've made a terrible mistake. I want to come home. I can't eat. I can't sleep. I hate everybody here. I hate my roommate. I just want to come home. I don't know what I'm doing, blah, blah, blah. And most of us do what parents do. That's fine. Do whatever you want. We love you. Whatever you decide is fine. We'll be here to support you. It's not a big deal. And that drives them crazy. And then you get completely frustrated because you're just trying to help and they yell at you, right? So part of this that I'd like to tell the kids, and I'll talk to them as well, is that when I used to do this live, I think I told you, the first thing I did is I made every kid get on the floor, lie down, and get in the fetal position. And I go, this is how you're going to be the first 6 weeks of school. If not externally, internally. You're going to walk around and you're going to feel like a stranger in a strange land. You're going to think everybody there is so together and they know exactly what they want to do, and you're going to be second guessing yourself all day, right? So by them, they should know that everybody that's walking around with a big smile on their face are big liar fakers, that they all go into a corner somewhere and cry. They can call you and cry, and that's all well and good, right? But what softens that is when we, you, me, whatever, have a conversation and let them know you're going to feel horrible. This is why you feel horrible. It's not like it's been for the last 12 years. You have a completely different clock. You're responsible for this particular thing. You think you know how to study, but you actually don't know how to study. And you're going to get freaked out when you get a C on your first, paper, your first test. You're going to see some people around you not like, hey, it's the first week, let's screw off. Hey, it's the second week. Hey, let's go off class. And then they're going to feel funny about being an individual and studying, and they have to understand that what they're going through, although it sucks, is normal. But you have to be aware, and you have to let them know that reaching out for help, first to the RA and then to the mental health professionals at school. What's really good about the college counselors when you're there is they're used to dealing with this. And they'll, at least for your sake, be able to make an assessment to see whether there's something really is going on, because real depression happens, real bad anxiety happens that's unrelated to school. So you want to keep on track of that. And the nice thing about it is you can call because you have a medical power of attorney and you can find out what's going on. All right, so I went over contact lists, email, passwords, phones. I mean, I bet you don't know your kid's phone password if you're trying to get into it, right? Well, again, you should probably know. You're not going to have access to their phone, but you want to make sure that they know. So now that we've talked about all the terrible, nasty stuff that can happen and how you can protect yourself so you don't have to worry about it. Let's talk about the fun stuff. The fun stuff is you're probably all running around and trying to figure out, should I buy, how am I going to decorate my kid's room? How am I going to get it there? Should I get the Amazon package? You know, do I send a Vitamix or do I send the NutriBullet? Should I give them a microwave? Can they have a toaster oven? What about an individual air conditioning and things like that? Well, here's the interesting thing. Colleges will give you checklists. You might have gotten them already. They may be on the website, but a college will have a checklist, a recommended checklist of what they tell you should have. In fact, there's a website, believe it or not, it's called collegechecklist.teacherlist.com, which that's okay. I'll send it to you. But here's what you need to do. You know where your kids are going to school. You need to go into the housing section when they talk about housing, and they will tell you the yeses and the nos for what you can bring. There will be especially now with COVID, there'll be no excuse. You don't want to lug a bunch of stuff to school that they can't have. You can't have in a lot of schools an open hot plate. You know, you can't have no longer have remember when we had those air popcorn makers, those hot air popcorn makers, right? Which is like a hair dryer with there's limitations on the kind of lights they can have and you have to find out how many outlets they have. And they have specific limitations on what kind of a power strip you can use and what can you hang things on the wall with and what are you going to get charged with? What kind of sheets you can have. You know, it's endless, right? Some schools just say, just don't have an open fire pit and you're fine, right? But you do want to make sure before you go that you check with what they say you can and can't have. And especially now with COVID, I'm seeing a lot more restrictions on what you can and cannot have. So it's extremely important that you go on and check that out. Let's see, I did identity theft, mental health. Okay. Okay. Well, look, you know that if you have any questions, you can ask me about it. But okay. Let me talk a little bit about why it's important for you and your student. Oh, I know one other thing I wanted to tell you. There is a way that eventually your student can take a loan out in their own name without having a cosigner. And the easiest thing to do is get a credit card in their name, have them, you know, monitor it, have them make purchases and pay off right away. It'll build up their credit, and if their credit gets built up high enough, there are some places that they will be able in their third and fourth year get a loan without a cosigner. But make sure it's responsible. People used to ask a lot about what banks, do I have to open a bank account? Listen, here's my advice to you. My advice to you is if your kids have Venmo them the amount of money you want them to have. Otherwise, they're going to be eating at Panera and Chipotle every day when you've paid for something else, right? You got to teach them financial literacy somewhere. But with, you know, PayPal or Venmo or cash or whatever else, they can use their, you know, as long as they have an ATM card, they can get what they need, but stay in control of that. Okay, COVID kits. That's right, COVID kits. Some colleges are requiring that people have COVID kits in their room, that everybody has a COVID kit. Let's see, I was looking at one. There's actually a website, covid-kits.com. You have to go into the school that you're going to. You have to look at their handbook. You have to be extremely familiar with their COVID requirements. Why am I telling you this? I mentioned this in a webinar before. I've mentioned it to maybe you individually, but here's what's happening. I unfortunately anticipate that a lot of these schools are going to be shutting down fairly quickly after they open up. you know, and I'm sorry, but you have to expect the worst until the election's over. You know, that's the, I mean, COVID is serious, but, you know, there's just too much politics going on, and colleges are risk adverse. So let's say, so what you have to know first off is, what are their policies with respect to COVID? What do I mean by that? You have to read, your school will say, you're required to wear your face mask everywhere except for in your room, right? If you're outside, you're inside. You have to understand what the restrictions are with respect to the usage of the bathroom, the co-ed or you know, the shared bathrooms that they have. You have to make sure, like here's what I've read. You have to have a mask on when you're going into class, in between classes. You have to use hand sanitizer as you enter the room and as you leave the room, and there'll be people on work study checking you, right? But some schools are more lenient than others. Some schools just say, that's okay, it's up to you, make sure you do it. We're not gonna force you to do it, but you need to make sure that you're there and doing that stuff. But understand, I've read a bunch of colleges that said, if you're there are gonna be people out there, and if you're walking around playing basketball or playing soccer or hanging out with your friends and don't have your mask on, or you're near other people, somebody's gonna report you. Next thing you know, you're on probation, you've lost your scholarship, and you're going home. I don't know about your schools. I haven't looked into these schools, but I can tell you a lot of schools are really relying upon your students following these directions. Now, here's something that won't shock you. They don't like to follow directions. And young people in general want to not stand out. And if they're walking with some friends to the dining hall to pick up their to-go dinner or lunch, because the dining halls aren't going to be open for eating there, and they don't want to feel like an oddball because they have their mask on, and they take their mask off, and then next thing you know, they're kicked out of school. So just read it ahead of time. The handbook, the course catalog, the updates, read it like it's, you know, like it's important. Go through it with the attentiveness that my wife watches Real Housewives of New Jersey with. You know, pay attention to everything there. So in addition to the code, and please let your student know that we're now adults. There are people watching. There are real consequences for not following the rules. It's not always going to be that way, but unfortunately, that's, you know, they cannot be lax because it's a different situation. I also need you to go through and with your student and understand the following things. What can put them on probation academically, right? What impact does that have on a scholarship? What impact does it have on their financial aid, right? I'm telling you, everything is connected that way. There are real repercussions for what's going on. One of the things I think needs to be emphasized, and I'll talk to your kids about this too, is going to college is not about getting good grades. Going to high school is about getting good grades so you can get into college. Going to college is not about getting good grades. I could take any one of your kids at any one of their schools, and I could pick their courses for 4 years, and they will graduate magna cum laude, summa cum laude, and not have to do a lick of work, right? Because there's a lot of grade inflation, and you have to emphasize they're not going there for the grades, they're going there to learn. The reason it's important to emphasize that is that cheating happens all the time. I don't want your kids pulling, you know, all-nighters, having bad habits as far as how they're, you know, going about doing their work, taking Adderall, which is rampant on campus. It's not the grades, and please emphasize that there are people who've failed courses and they retake courses, and 1 bad or 2 bad grades is not going to, and I know you've had this conversation, is not going to change your life. So the other thing is, your kids all now have a portal. I mentioned that before. Please make them sit down with you and show you the portal so that you're familiar with all of the information that is available, so that there is, 1, a place for you to go to check, but 2, it's also nice when they say, well, I don't know, right? You can say, yes, it's on your portal. You'll be helpful. I meant to tell you, in looking through the COVID kit information on some of the schools, one of the schools, Marietta College in Ohio, just so you know, part of their COVID welcome kit is a video instructing you how to wash your hands. I think if your kid needs to watch a video about how to wash their hands, they probably shouldn't be in college, right? But that's just a level that, you know, colleges are taking to protect themselves, but I'm sure you've told them how to wash their hands. But anyway, okay. Again, I told you we're doing things up to getting them there. Don't, you know, everybody wants to make a really comfy room for their kid. Don't overpack the first time. Going back to feeling bad, one of the things I want to dispel is you have to understand that almost every college is a commuter or a suitcase college. It's very unusual for a freshman or even a sophomore to get dropped off of college and come back on Thanksgiving, right? It is very, very typical, especially if they're closer to home, to help the adjustment for most kids go away on the weekend. Unless you're at a Penn State with a big football or Michigan, there's a big game, most people pack up and go home. If your kid comes home the first weekend, don't make a big deal about it. You know, it takes time to adjust. They're not going to miss out on anything because most likely their roommate's not going to be there either. So don't be alarmed if your kid wants to come home, unless they're like some of you 12 hours away. They're not coming home every weekend, but don't stress over it. I've told this story before. My kids, the first semester they were both in college, I used to go out and have lunch with them once a week. Just so that, you know, they could have a sense of normalcy. Probably a lot of times didn't talk about anything. So don't stress over every little thing. One thing I want you to tell your kids is about there's a student success center at all schools, which there's also an office of student support. I don't know if any of you, I mean, I do know none of your students, or some of you may have students who have, whether it's a learning difference, a medical condition, a psychological issue, if they've had a 504, an IEP, if they need, all of that is available. They have top flight people to help you there, but please let your kid know, and you should know as well, they don't do anything for you unless you ask. If you need something, you know, an accommodation for something, you need to make an appointment, you have to provide the accommodations office with everything that you need, and then they will put a plan together for you, okay? That goes into, when I talked about they're not going to school for grades, you need to emphasize to your students, to your kids, I'm sorry to call them students, to your kids that, look, the best education that you can possibly get is the one that you make sure that you get, right? If they go to class and have a teacher they don't relate to, if they're not getting it, they now have every option to succeed. Using a tutor, using a teaching assistant, going to the resident assistant, going to a psychologist, going to a professor, getting additional help, going to the writing center. That's a sense of pride. That means you care. You want to learn more than the bare minimum. The kids who don't use that stuff are the ones who are just trying to get a degree and get out and do whatever they're going to do somewhere. But it's important that they know that not knowing what's going on, not understanding that struggle is a sign of growth, not a sign of weakness. And again, usually this seminar goes into with the kids, and I talk to them about the importance of time management, the importance of not getting on, you know, taking classes that don't make sense. But I'm trying to inform you. The other thing with related to that is most likely your kid's going to end up hating their roommate. Even if they're best friends from high school. When I went to college, first semester, I ultimately roomed with my best friend from high school. the guy's parents basically raised me during high school. We were as close as could be. He ended up like completely doing nothing but smoking cigarettes all day and all night. They could smoke in the room at the time. He had some kind of a break and left ultimately after that. And that was not good. I had some other terrible roommates. Tell your kids don't expect their roommates to be their best friends, and that's okay. But here's what I'm concerned about. Please make sure you know the freedom that your kid's going to have to walk around campus and to go in other places, because some of these COVID restrictions, I actually know of 2 schools that basically have said, if you opt to come here, first of all, only freshmen are having half of their classes in an actual classroom. Professors aren't going to be there, by the way. The kids are going to go there and the professors are going to be online. But essentially, the kids are not allowed to leave their dorm room except to go to a class and to come back. They have 15 minutes to go and they come back. They are not allowed to move in and out of rooms on their dorms. They are not going to be going anywhere for meals. The gyms aren't going to be open. You think your kid's going to have a hard time adjusting to school? Imagine if they have to sit in their cell for 20 hours a day. So just make sure you go on and check all that stuff. So I think that's pretty much what I wanted to cover, except I want to emphasize the following. Again, with all of you who are on here, you're my clients, and we'll talk more about this. I can provide you with the documentation. If you need help looking for things online at school, you can contact me. You know, it's going to be a shock to both of you. It's going to be great. You're not going to know the answers to a lot of your kids' questions, but fortunately I'm here for that. Please let your kids know that they have my number. They can text me. I can help you through that different process. But I will tell you that your experience will be much better once you have powers of attorney. Now, what do you do once you have those powers of attorney? Now I have them signed. What do I do? You send them into the school. You send them into the admissions office and the financial aid office, and you let them know that you want this to be made, a note to be made that, you know, here's the power of attorney, and that they have an obligation now to provide information to you the same way that they have to provide information to your student. They expect it. You know, a lot of people do it. But it's important. All they'll do is they'll keep a file, you know, the financial aid office, the bursar, the registrar, they'll have a copy of it. There'll be a little flag on it that says, yes, you can talk to the parents, and then you can get that information. You know, I have a lot more I can talk about, but a couple other things I want you guys to check. It's still not too late to ask for more money. I know it might seem like it, but you know, you're not there yet, right? Who knows what their classes are? If you think, you know, you might be able to squeeze some more money out of a school, don't hesitate to ask. Nothing's going to happen negatively. Also, make sure that you check your insurance versus the school's health insurance. Sometimes you can opt out of the health insurance that they're offering, and it saves you anywhere from $500 to $3,000. But here's what I also want you to keep in mind. You're now sending your kids off to be raised by a whole other group of people, right? But you're not relinquishing your role as their parent. Having these powers of attorney, you know, you want your kids to self-advocate, but the way you do that is by showing them, you know, like they call me. I have this issue, what do I do? By working together with them so that they don't feel that they have to read an email and not know what to do about it. There's no weakness. They have to learn how to self-advocate. So we learn that by having a coach. In this case, that's you or me, and we tell them what to do. And and as you go through school, and I want to have a meeting with your kids, I'll talk about too, but, you know, one of the other things I want you to do is emphasize that your kids can't skip class. Okay, that's a big mistake made. I'm going to send you a list of the top 20 mistakes that college freshmen make, right? But here's one of the things that I want to leave you with. Every class they take is going to have a syllabus. Every syllabus is where the professor tells you what their procedures are. That will vary, and I've had kids contact me and said, I failed a class because I had 3 unexcused absences. And I didn't know that 3 unexcused absences would get me a failing grade. It's right there on the syllabus. So make sure when the syllabus comes out, offer to help them. Here's what they need to do. As soon as they get their syllabus, they have to get their calendar out. They have to put the dates that everything is due. They have to put the office hours that the professor's there. They have to code and know what classes and excuses that they can have for missing a class if they do. Getting assignments in on time. What kids don't know is it's not like high school. There is some flexibility as long as you follow a procedure. Usually it says on the syllabus, if you need additional time, do this. If you're gonna, and please let them know this also. And you know this too. If something's due at 11:59 p.m. on a Sunday night, if they try to upload it between 11:30 and 11:59 p.m., they're not going to get it in. So it's little things like that, little hiccups that they're going to go through. So that's a bunch of info. Questions? Anybody? You can unmute and ask me questions. We have a small group.
I'm going to go to one. I have a question. I'm going to one of the very practical things when you were talking about bank account and Venmo and all of that. Is it better for them to open up a bank account where they are at the campus or locally here? Or does it even matter?
Well, I mean, most, one, just check to see if they have an account now. You can check to see, if there's a branch there, if it's a big bank. But think about what would the benefit be now in this day and age with online banking. If you teach them about online banking, they're not really going to be receiving or transacting a lot, right? They're going to have their ATM card. They'll have a credit card. I don't anticipate them writing checks. So, I don't know necessarily what a benefit is, unless, again, you're out of state and they don't have a branch and you're going to save ATM fees. That's really the only thing that I can think of with respect to that. When we went, we all had to have a bank account because parents send us checks and, we deposit them in our bank instead of going to the money store or whatever, the check cashing place. So it's fine to open it there, but with the internet and online banking, there's no real reason to do that. I think I lost you. Wow. You're frozen. All right. Well, I hope it was helpful. I have a ton more stuff that I can talk to you about. I did forget to mention this. Textbooks. Right? Here's what's going to happen. After I found out after the first, like when I went to college, I needed fresh, pristine books, right? I needed them. I had to write them. I had to do what I wanted to do. The most expensive place to get the books is the school bookstore at school. Most books you can get on Amazon for cheaper. Everybody said, I'll keep my intro to psych book, my intro to economics book. The fact is, you never look back at them. If you're concerned about it, the best thing to do is rent the books. When you rent the books through Chegg or another one of those companies, my kids do it, a lot of kids do it. The books get delivered right to them at school, and then they send you return packages that you just put it in and send it back. So if you're looking to save money, I highly recommend renting the books. Also, you don't have to buy the absolute newest edition. Professors do that so that they're making more money, but you don't have to do that either. So, anybody else? Well, I miss seeing all of you in person. If you found this to be helpful, please feel free to share it with your friends. Please remember every week, every Wednesday at noon, I'm still doing updates on Facebook Live. I'm going to have a seminar that your kids are going to have to sit there and listen to me, because I'm going to teach them all the stuff that they need to know, including, registering for particular classes, how to advocate for class, what to do when they say the class is full and they can't get it. Making sure that they develop relationships with at least 2 people at school, like a professor or an administrator. That's where all the learning takes place. And I'll make them sit here and I'll tongue lash them about being nice to their parents and appreciating who the hell's paying for school. So, okay, you know how to get in touch with me. I can't believe, Abby, that you have your air popper from college. I can't imagine what you do with it, but I have stuff like that too.
We make popcorn.
Still, huh?
The kids love my air popper.
Wow. That's amazing. Is it a Hamilton Beach? I don't know what it is.
You know what? It may be. I'm not sure. Yeah.
Does it have a yellow chute up top? Is it a yellow chute? Is it white? I remember mine was white and had a yellow chute up top.
Mine's white. I don't know. It has like a clear thing that goes on top.
Yeah. I think mine was yellow from all the smoke in the room. Again, people smoked cigarettes in the room back then. Can you imagine?
I still have my typewriter too, by the way.
Really?
Yeah, my parents bought that for me when I graduated from high school.
Oh, that's good. Yeah, I remember having my Smith Corona. Oh, God. Okay. Everybody stay well.
You too,
Stay
Jay.
healthy.
Thank you so much.
All right.
Thank you, Jay.
You're welcome, guys. I'll see you all soon.
Thank you, Jay.
Hopefully. Be well. Take care.
Thank you so much. Bye.
Be in touch. See ya.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Bye.